a review for Night of the Living Dead from 1968. This is, one of those classic movies that I've just never got around to watching the whole thing. I really wanted to see this in theater. I would have liked to see this like at the Alamo or something. I love seeing horror movies there, especially older ones. But they had a screening there, and I just couldn't make it into town. I don't live in Kansas City anymore, so it's not as easy just to pop over to the Alamo and watch a movie as it used to be. But since George A. Romero just passed away, unfortunately, about a week or two ago from when I'm recording this, I thought it was about time I finally watched the original Night of the Living Dead. I've seen his other two, the follow-up movies, so Dawn of the Dead after this in 78, and then Day of the Dead in 85. So those two I really liked, and I just had never seen the original. I don't know why I never threw it on, but it just took me too long. I don't know if it's like the black and white. That shouldn't be a reason for not seeing a movie, but I know it's super low budget, black and white. And I think I'd heard from like my brother, he wasn't the biggest fan of the movie, and so it just took me a while to get to it. But with Romero's passing, I was like, all right, I gotta watch this, and so I had the DVD of it and threw it on, and ended up really liking it. Actually, I was surprised how quickly they get into the zombies. So right away at the beginning, there's that very famous line of "They're coming to get you, Barbara." That's at the very beginning. It's a brother and sister are at the cemetery putting some flowers on a grave. I think it's their dad. And right away we get a zombie attack. There's a guy just kind of strolling around and looking kind of weird, and he starts to attack Barbara, and then the brother comes to defend her, and he ends up getting the worst of it. He gets bit, and then Barbara runs off, tries to drive away, which crashes, and then ends up running into a farmhouse. And that's where the rest of the movie takes place. So she's in this house, and she's pretty much just freaking out the whole time. And then she meets a guy coming in. It looks like he knows what he's doing. His name is Ben, and he's been fighting these guys a little bit more, and he's trying to communicate with her, but Barbara's just like out of it. And eventually we find out that there's more people in this house. There's husband and wife in the basement cellar, and they're with their daughter. Their daughter's down there. And then there's also another couple. I don't know I can't remember if they're married or not, but they're at least boyfriend, girlfriend, a younger couple. They're down there as well. So eventually they come up and they all try to fight this thing together, and they need to, get out of there. They want to make a run for it or somehow get away from these guys, these zombies. That's the basic story. I mean, I think everybody knows this story by now, but I won't get into all the details of it because it's a classic for a reason. It's well known, but I'll just kind of get into some of the maybe the more subtle stuff. So right away, I can understand why people might be hesitant to like this at the beginning. I think it starts off maybe a little slow, but I think the worst part about the beginning is Barbara herself. I don't think you want to be sympathetic to her, but at the same time, I just don't think that actress is doing a very good job with the character, and she's just kind of annoying. She's just freaking out, spazzing out. She's not really doing much, then she kind of goes comatose, and I think that kind of gets into some of the, I don't know, maybe the more, I could definitely see this more controversial at the time in 68, because Ben comes in and he's played by an African-American man, and this is actually one of the first films to have African-American man as like the main character, main protagonist. So, and then there's a part like where he smacks her because she's freaking out. So I thought it was kind of, I don't know if I should use the word funny, but interesting. Yeah, because she is freaking out too much. But I could see that being a very contentious point from people's watching this in 68. And I really liked Ben. He was easily my favorite character. And so once he comes into the movie, it gets a lot better. So yeah, I really like Ben, not just because my name is Ben as well, but he's a really good character. The actor does a great job with his character and his performance. He just comes in, and you'd think that he's been fighting these zombies for, maybe a couple of years or something. Alos is just a new phenomenon, but he knows he feels like he knows what he's doing. He is a very strong character. He has like a very strong survival instinct, and he's just taking charge. He's doing what he needs to at the time. So I thought he was great. I really liked him. And then we get the other characters coming in, and they just throw more plot twists into what's going on. So they're trying to fight off these zombies, but at the same time, these other people in the cellar come up. Some of them want to make a run for it. They're gonna try to get to a truck, and then there's like the father, and he becomes kind of an antagonist a little bit. He's kind of at odds. Him and Ben are fighting pretty much the whole time, and he does some very shady stuff. But he's just also, coming from his point of view, he just wanted to stay in the cellar. He thought they were safe down there, and he's just trying to protect his wife and his daughter, who's unfortunately been bitten, and that comes into play later. She's pretty famous for being in some of the covers of the movie. The daughter is. So yeah, I kind of see why some people might be hesitant to like this at the beginning. I think it's a slow start, but then it definitely ramps up, and I really, really like where it went. It got way more brutal than I thought it would be, especially for how old it is in '68. It got pretty graphic, and just kind of reading some of the trivia about the movie, it was one of the first films to actually show like graphic murders on screen, which doesn't surprise me now after seeing it. So it gets really good, gets really graphic, and just kind of this movie sets the precedent for what we expect from a zombie movie, and pretty much everything is in this movie, and we can see why it's so well regarded and it's so iconic. Pretty much everything you see like in The Walking Dead and modern zombie films, it's here. It's setting all the ground rules, and that's why it's such a classic, and that's why people like it so much. Definitely can see that now after seeing it, why people like it. And yeah, it was also at the time it was one of the most successful independent films ever. It made like 260 something times its budget, but its money back. It was made for like a little over $100,000 and made like millions of dollars. So it was like this huge phenomenon. It's a huge success for this small indie movie, and that just propelled Romero to who he is now and how well regarded and well known he is in the horror community. So it's really good for that. Oh, then it's kind of funny too because it is a zombie movie, but they never actually use the word zombie. They call them ghouls at one point, and a couple people just call them some other names, but they never say zombie. So that's kind of funny because like the pinnacle zombie movie. Yeah, it was. It ended up being a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be maybe a little slow, but it just ramps up so much at the end. It gets really, really good. I think the two biggest criticisms are I didn't like the portrayal of Barbara. I think she needed to be a stronger character. Not like physically stronger, but I just think the actress needed to do a better job at portraying that character. I didn't think she was very good at that, especially because she's like the lead off into the story. So that was kind of probably one of the weakest points. Then again, I mean, this is a pretty low budget independent film, and that maybe these aren't the best actors around that you could find. But on the other hand, we have Dwayne Jones who's playing Ben. He does an amazing job. So I don't know, they got a great performance out of him. But Barbara, a weak point. The other thing that I really didn't like was the music. I thought it was really, really, really bad, and very distractingly bad because I don't know. I hate to you can't compare it to like Carpenter's Halloween, which was 10 years later, but that's just so iconic because of its score. And same thing with like Friday the 13th. That has a pretty iconic score as well. And I think horror movies and their scores became synonymous for really being really, really good and really letting you delve into that world. And it gives this atmosphere and aura around what you're watching that makes it work. And unfortunately here, it does not work at all. I think the music is very, very poor. You're not going to see people going out to buy the soundtrack for this. I think obviously you need to have some sort of music in the background, some score. You can't just have nothing. That'd be really weird. but what they chose to do was just really bad. Nothing about it works. And there's kind of like three categories of when you're watching a movie and the music. One, it stands out because it's so good. You're like, wow, this music and this score is just really like turning this into a whole another experience. That's one. That's the good thing. Two is that the music is not here, there, there. You just kind of, it's whatever. It's forgettable. You don't think about it later, and it's just whatever. The third is that it's so bad that you remember it for being bad, and this is unfortunately in that third category. It's a very poor score. So that's all I'll say about that. But anyways, took me too long to see this movie. Ended up really, really liking it at the end. Like, I think it builds up into something great, and you can kind of see why it's so iconic and popular with horror fans and zombie fans. So I'm not rating it as high as the other follow-up movies, Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead. I think I gave both of those about 4.25s out of 5. I'm going to give this a 3.75 out of 5. So a bit lower than those, but still a good movie. A must-watch for Romero fans, horror fans. It's very iconic, or even just real cinephiles, film fans in general. This is iconic for a reason. So definitely worth a watch. Again, a 3.75 out of 5.